Hello everyone, my name is Marco and I'm a senior technical instructor in iPexpert and the CCIE 18427. In the next couple of minutes, I will demonstrate to you iPexpert's CCIE routing and switching 1-week lab experience graphical user interface. 1-week lab experience is iPexpert's most challenging and demanding CCIE bootcamp course designed for CCIE students and candidates in their final months of preparation for the CCIE lab exam. As you know, these days in CCIE RNS Lab there are no printed workbooks. Everything is delivered electronically, as it should be in 2010. We are proud to announce that our 1-week lab experience class, which we call OWLE for short, will soon feature similar user interface as the one used by Cisco in the real lab. Let me show you. When I open the connection to the user interface, I'm presented with the login screen. Here I'm just going to use my own Proctor Labs username and password. And then when that is verified with the server, I'm going to be presented with this login screen. On this screen I have several pieces of very important information. The first thing that is mentioned here is my own username, which I should know by now, and it also tells me which pod number I'm going to be using. This is Proctor Labs pod. Before I start the lab, I need to make sure that this particular pod has been loaded with the proper configuration for the troubleshooting section. And here it says that the lab section that I'm about to enter is the troubleshooting one. This is something that will be done for you before you start the 1-week lab experience. So every day instructor who is present in the class will guide you through loading appropriate configurations. Also, before we start the lab, we should verify that our web browser meets certain requirements. We have automated this verification and we can simply run the test by clicking on this link here. And then it gives me some information what I need to have running. The most important thing is that pop-ups are not blocked. And I can run a very simple test here. And I can see that everything works fine on my web browser and I can continue. So let's start the lab next. I can start the lab by just simply clicking Start Lab Now button. So once I click here, I'm presented with the lab user interface. The user interface is very simple and very straightforward. Here in the navigation bar, I have links to different diagrams. For example, in this particular lab, I'm presented with layer 2 diagram, layer 3 diagram, and the BGP diagram. Clicking on any of these diagrams is going to open a pop-up window that is going to have a more zoomed in diagram than the one I can see here in front of me. So this is a layer 2 diagram. I can also open BGP diagram or layer 3 diagram. Here I have a very important button. It's the introduction button. This button will open the window that contains the general rules for this particular lab. In this troubleshooting section here, I'm given certain guidelines that I need to follow throughout the lab if I'm to succeed. Then we have tasks. Here we have 12 trouble tickets. I'm just going to open trouble ticket number 8, for example. This one here is a rather detailed trouble ticket. And I'm given certain instructions and I'm given certain information that I can use to troubleshoot this particular problem. I can access every ticket individually here. Also, I have the link to documentation. This will open a separate window which will open link to Cisco's own documentation website where I can access the appropriate documentation that I need. This is just like in the real lab where you can open the link to documentation and you don't actually have to remember the URL. Here at the very last to the very right of the navigation bar, I have the time remaining. For troubleshooting section, we have 2 hours, so this clock will be counting down from 2 hours from the time when you click on Start Lab. The next thing is this diagram itself here is actually not very passive. It's not just a picture. I can click on any device that I have access to, for example R2, and it's going to open the telnet window where I can log in with my username and password, and I have immediately access to that device. So this works for all of the devices that I have access to in this particular lab. For example, I don't have access to BB2 and BB3 or BB1, so I can keep clicking on them, but I don't have access to them. Also, when I'm done with my troubleshooting section, I can close my devices. I don't really have to do that, and then I click on Finish section. Here I'm going to be asked for the confirmation, and if I'm sure that I'm done with the troubleshooting section, I'm going to click on OK, and I'm back at the login window. But login window is slightly different now. I can see that the next section that I'm going to go into is the configuration section. So when the configurations for the configuration section have been loaded on my pod number 111, I can go and start the lab. And user interface here is very similar to the one that we have seen just now. I also have access to the diagrams. I also have the introduction button. I also have the documentation link, which will open the same window. But I don't have the countdown timer. The reason why I don't have the countdown timer here is that some people may finish the troubleshooting section in less than 2 hours. There is no point in counting down because we don't know how long time it took them to finish the troubleshooting section. So we're going to know what the end time it is for the lab that we are doing on that particular day, and we are just going to end at that time. Another slight difference with the user interface here is the task drop-down list. Here I can see that tasks are actually divided into sections. Section 1 is layer 2 technologies, section 2 is IPv4, IGP, and so on. This depends on the particular lab that you are doing. You can open individual tasks. Let me just slightly resize this window. You can resize it and move it around, that's perfectly okay. So you see, whenever I open the task, it opens in the same window. But sometimes I need to see more than one task. I can open the whole section, for example. So this window now shows all the tasks in section 2. I can also be very creative. For example, I know that this, let's open section 1. This is layer 2 technologies, and I'm going to open the layer 2 diagram, and I'm just going to minimize this window. I'm going to position this diagram here so I can see all the relevant information. Something like this. I'm going to resize this one as well. Just put it somewhere there. I'm going to open Notepad. And then I'm going to open, for example, connections to my catalyst switches. I need to do that from the main diagram. Let me just open cat1. cat2. cat3. And finally cat4. As I say, this is just the demonstration of the user interface. There is really no need for me to solve anything. I'm just going to show you, for example, how you can arrange the windows and work with the lab. So here I have the diagram that I need, and I have all the devices that I need access to: cat1, cat2, cat3, and cat4. I have my tasks, and I have Notepad in a case I need to type some commands here. Also, I can close down these windows that I don't need, bring back up the main user interface, and when I'm done, when I have solved all the tasks that I can see here, I just close my window and talk to the instructor that is present, and then we can go and discuss the lab that you have just done. So this was a quick overview of our 1-week lab experience. We are going to be introducing this real soon, and I really hope to see you in one of our OWLE classes. Thank you very much for listening.